What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the OddsShopper channel. Today, we are talking some college football bets, best bets ahead of the Saturday Week 2 slate. Before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you by Bet365. They have a deal for those of you in Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, Colorado, Louisiana, Indiana, Arizona, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. What you'll do is click the link below, make your first deposit, and then bet $5 on any game, any total. Whether it wins or loses, you will get $150 in the form of bonus bets. You must be 21 or older, 18 in Kentucky. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we're going to talk three big games for Saturday briefly. We have a full episode on betting you on this very channel, going in depth on more games on this slate. 2 episodes. So if you'd like more in-depth breakdowns, check those out. We're going to kick things off with Texas taking on Michigan State. This is a game with a spread that's climbed to 7.5. The total is 42.5. You may be able to find -7s if you shop or if you wait, seeing a lot of these Michigan plus 7.5s juiced. I'm on the Texas side, and I would wait for that number. I do not want to lay the hook with it, but there's a lot of concerns I have with Michigan coming into this year. First of all, they have the quarterback position. It was not a good showing in week 1. They started Davis Warren. He completed 60% of his passes, 4.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, negative rushing yards. Bad showing. This is against Fresno State. A quality Mountain West team, but a Mountain West team nonetheless. They also had a cameo appearance from Alex Orji. He basically just ran the ball. The offensive line is a big concern for me. They allowed 25% pressure rate against Fresno State in their debut. That's a big concern. Now you're facing a legitimate defensive line with a ton of juice off the edge. They have every single starter brand new. Now, 4 of these guys are with the program last year, got some rotational snaps or in blowouts, but this is nothing to write home about. Michigan is going to have to live on their defense, and they're going to have to create havoc. And I'm not sure they can do that against Texas, who has one of the best offensive lines in the entire country. They brought 4 back. That unit was 3rd in pass blocking, 54th in run blocking last year. They also have about 18 receivers on this roster that can legitimately beat you week in, week out. They lose all the players to the NFL, Jatavian Sanders, Xavier Worthy, etc. But they bring in Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, and among a ton of recruits that they have just waiting in the wings, Jonte Cook among them. Many, many elite players in the skill positions for this Texas offense. And their defense is quality too. The biggest question I had was on the interior with this team. They lose the 2 NFL studs at defensive tackle. Your edge group is amazing, highlighted by, like Trey Moore coming in from UTSA. But the defensive line is a unit that was pretty deep last year and did rotate some. So you have 2 players back that got some experience in Vernon Brown and Alfred Collins, but they also bring in Bill Norton from Arizona and Jermaine Lowell. Those players, especially Norton, is an absolute monster up front and should be able to clog the middle. What has me leaning towards Texas more than anything else is, even if that is a weakness, the inability of Michigan to throw the ball in week 1 against the Mountain West team should allow Texas to crowd the box. And they have starters back at every other position. So that should be an easy way to play Michigan. The only player that scares you on that offense is Colson Loveland. He was the entire offense in their first game. Even Donovan Edwards disappointed and got outplayed by Khalil Mullings, who might just straight up take the job from him. When it comes down to good offense in Texas versus good defense in Michigan, that makes sense. And then bad offense in Michigan versus good defense in Texas, I'll lay the points with a team that's good on both sides of the ball against Michigan, who's only good on one. Home field does scare me, but under 7, at 7, I think this is fine. Our second game we'll talk about here, maybe not the biggest in terms of ranked versus ranked team, but Colorado takes on Nebraska. Certainly the eyeballs will be on this game with Deion Sanders and a lot of people trying to bet against him. If you did that last week, you were successful, but this line has ballooned. You're going to see Nebraska 7.5 in some spots. This has moved even further. In others, you might be able to find a straggling 7 in the market. The total currently sits at 59 points. That was the side I liked more than anything else, the total over a spread. And at the current number, I'm a little hesitant, but it's still probably an over or pass. And here's why. Colorado, we know what they do. Even though they changed offensive coordinators, their first game against North Dakota State, they were fast, 24.5 seconds per play, passed 59.5% of the time. Not all that different than last year, where they used two OCs in two different stints throughout the season. But they're a pass-heavy offense. That's where they succeed. They still have a lot of concerns in the offensive line. Thought we adjusted those this offseason, but still 31% pressure rate against an FCS team. That's pretty bad. They also came in 93rd on defense. So, yeah, maybe they made slight improvements, but you're still looking at a unit that is probably below average. And they did lose the safety, Cameron Silman Craig, to a concussion in the game. We'll see about his status. All this to say, this Colorado team looks a lot like they did last year. They have an explosive quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, 4 or 5 explosive pass catchers highlighted by Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn. And their defense is a concern. Nebraska, this team should be very different. Last year, they sort of had to resort to this extremely slow, run-heavy scheme because of their quarterback issues. They go from Jeff Sims to Harburg, who can't really throw. Now we're expecting them to be a little more up-tempo and faster. They moved to a pocket passer in Dylan Royola, who's the crown jewel of this recruiting class. And they upgraded pass catchers. They bring in Nair from Texas, previously of Wyoming. They bring in Jamal Banks from Wake Forest. This unit played UTEP in week 1, and they beat them down. But what we really want to look for in UTEP is, did they do what they were supposed to do? And Nebraska certainly did. Their skill position players played very well. They soundly outgained them, and they caused 2 turnovers on defense, which is something we haven't mentioned. The strength of this team, Nebraska that is, was on defense last year. And now you look at this year, they returned 9 starters. And I think you could argue a 10th because of injury last year. Excuse me. So now you have a good defense facing off against a weak offensive line. Shedeur probably does what he can, but he's going to be under pressure at times. And then I expect Nebraska fully to score with their increased pace and now pocket passing quarterback. I took an over 57. The 59s are out there, but I think if you wait a little bit, you can get a better number. There's been some buyback. I would look for a 58 if you can, but the over is going to be the play for me. All right, we'll get to our last game in just a second. One thing I want to highlight before we get there is our OddsShopper marketplace. This is where myself, other content creators, have individual packages for specific sports that all involve betting. For me, it's mainly college football, college basketball. That's the first place you'll hear about lines. We're doing player props in there, release a sheet that compares my projections to the individual player props every single week. Doing extra analysis, power ratings. We'll have an insider video exclusively. And it's not just me. There's a slew of content creators in there doing all sorts of sports. There really is something that fits every single person's wants and needs. The link is below. Check that out. We'll be hanging out there talking college football all through the end of the season. All right. Last game we will talk about today is Kansas and Illinois. Perhaps not the most marquee game, but one I do like, so I want to give you one last actionable play. I'm on the Kansas side. Illinois is a team I've been below market on since the beginning of the season. What they bring back is concerning to me. Luke Altmaier, their quarterback, was outplayed by John Paddock, who was a transfer from the MAC. And he's the player you're expecting to lead your offense. Yeah, it looks great for Illinois in week 1. They play Eastern Illinois. I'm certainly happy the offense is humming on all cylinders, but let's see them when they face a real opponent, which they are certainly getting in this game. So aside from the quarterback concerns, I still think the skill position players leave a lot to be desired. Basically, Pat Bryant is your number 1. You lose your stud, Isaiah Williams, in the offseason. Zachary Franklin comes in from Ole Miss, previously of UTSA. We'll see what he gives you. Their tight end's already out for the year. They returned 3 starters on the offensive line, your entire interior. But at your tackle positions, your bookends, you're relying on a Grambling State transfer. And, I mean, a New Mexico transfer, really, we'll see if they play the whole year. I'm not sure. And then, most of all, on the interior, you lose an absolute stud cast of defensive tackles. Jerzon Newton's in the NFL. Denzel Dax and Keith Randolph are gone. And now you're relying on a secondary, which has 2 completely new faces. So I just have a lot of concerns against Kansas, who by all means is a very explosive offense. Jalen Daniels looked awesome in the first game. What I was really looking for is no health concerns. I think we got a clean bill there. Devin Neal is back, one of the best run after contact RBs in the entire country. All 3 receivers, your tight end, 3 starters on the offensive line. And I think this unit is just as good as last year. Bryce Foster comes in from A&M at center. Logan Brown was hurt last year, but he's the former 5-star Wisconsin offensive lineman. And this defense should be just fine. You have basically every starter back in the secondary outside of your slot. Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson are excellent corners. Your safeties are good too, so not expecting much production there. And then the defensive line, I think, is probably going to be a little bit worse, but some of your transfers could easily make up for this. By Job, 4-star, comes in from Michigan State. He actually played in their first game with a cast on his hand. I was surprised, only expecting things to get better from them. And then you had 2 4-stars on the defensive line coming in. So perhaps with experience, these guys get better. I'm impressed with this Kansas roster. I like them across the board. Hate that I have to play them on the road, but you can easily find 5s, 5.5s through this game, which is where we will side. This is just the best bets version. So again, if you want extra content, head over to Betting You on this very channel. We break down more games, and we'll be doing even more week after week. I had to move last weekend, so finally got my act and my internet together. So expect more content coming up. Until then, we'll see you guys next time. Good luck and have a good week too.